And it's that our last speaker is Chris Waddle. He's nothing to do with football, by the way, or he might be, but um, he's actually our city council countryside ranger, and he looks after our non-recreational green spaces, by which I mean the ones that don't have play equipment and toilets in, etc. And they're managed for wildlife, for biodiversity, and also for people to enjoy. And Chris has got a unique gift for actually bringing those two potentially conflicting interests together. And he works with a lot of hard to reach groups and a lot of pre-form groups, and also with individuals who actually just, he meets in the woods and stuff, who express an interest. And there's lots of people actually working with him to make our green spaces much more accessible and also managed for wildlife as they should be. So thank you, Chris. I'm going to shut up now.
Thanks for that intro.
Soils are the building blocks of life, and behind me here there's a lot of life, natural life, and without the community's input these areas wouldn't quite be as impressive as what they are. We're very fortunate in Truro that we've got a whole host of different community groups that really enjoy outdoor spaces, and in the areas managed by Truro City Council, they give an opportunity for local residents and different community groups to come together and put something back into the community so they can reap the rewards. So coming up there'll be a host of interviews with different members of our green community in Truro. It's only a small portion of them. It's a massive green community really, and I hope you enjoy listening to how the building blocks of life, from soil to young children, can interact with each other to really enjoy these green spaces. Volunteers with us from a service called Give to Gain, and this is a service between the City Council and Healthworks of Cornwall, where we've had people come to us for all sorts of reasons, mental health benefits, physical health benefits, they might be out of work for a period of time. And with me today I've got Billy and Mel. And Billy, I mean, you've been with us, what, 3-4 weeks since you started now? 5 weeks? Yeah?
Yeah, it's good to be back 5 weeks.
And you've got a big interest in woodland management yourself, haven't you?
Yeah. It's 2 years at college studying conservation,
So doing this sort of work gives you a chance
experience.
Yeah. And how have you benefited from coming every week?
Well, apart from getting me out of the house, actually meeting people, hard work.
Yeah, physical benefits. Yeah.
And just being in the wood. I love being in the woods.
Yeah.
Really enjoying it.
So it's
learning, obviously.
Yeah.
Experience, learning, you know what you're doing.
Brilliant. Yeah. That's excellent, mate. And Billy's also volunteered to do an extra day a week. So you've gone from, like you said yourself, not really coming out of the house much at all, to coming out of the house 2 days a week. And you really get a lot of benefit, because you have to train here as well, don't you, from Canberra?
Yeah.
So it's not like you have to walk out his front door, it's obviously something's dragging you back. in a positive way, of course.
Yeah.
And Mel, you're similar, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, I live locally, I'm only 5 minutes walk away from here. So I spend quite a lot of time in these woods anyway, and in the northern meadows. So for me, apart from, like Billy, the physical side of it, it's doing my head good because I'm out in the green spaces, and giving back to the community, as well as obviously meeting people that you meet when you're along the trail, learning about the flora, the fauna, looking at wildlife. It really is, it's a worthwhile thing to do. We've got to protect this habitat, we've got to protect our green spaces, so it's a great way of giving back to the community.
Yeah, brilliant. And I must admit, personally as well, somebody who has suffered on and off with my mental health, just doing this job's one thing, but working with a great member of staff there, Dom, behind the camera, but also volunteers like yourselves, I get a lot more out of it as well. It definitely benefits me being around people in these green spaces, I think, really brings out something different, doesn't it?
And it clears your mind, doesn't it? It just takes you right back to basics and grounds you
It really does.
in a way that you can then move forward in all different aspects of your life, I think.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
Just use the word to gain, exactly what it
Gives
is.
to gain.
Yeah.
It was about 14 months ago. I found that we could only go out for about an hour, and so I used that time, the hour, to fix doors, and it's 7 or 8 hours in the shed making the doors. And I thought the best thing you can do is give something back to the community and encourage the community to sort of, if you like, donate materials, get involved, whether it be the artwork, painting shells. Jean McNaughton, she's the local artist. She's been in here doing quite a bit of her work and showing off, and Marion Dodd. We've had Nick Bone. We've had loads of people all interested. We've had schools, and the answer is this is belonging to the people. It's their ownership. So they've claimed this, and once you claimed it, it needs to be looked after, which they do.
And people are getting a lot of benefits, wouldn't you say, John? Health, mentally, physically?
Definitely health benefits, because people like to come along, sit down on the bench there. There's bird feeding station there that Bernadette Rowe has put there.
Yes, yeah.
Bernadette Rowe has put some squirrel feeders here as well. So when you look around and you can see where people have been involved, what they've done, what the idea of heaven is, if you like, because they come down here and it's nice and quiet. And it's away from the cycle track. It's away, you could be in a different part of the world, different planet. This, you know. And then you've got all the noise, the bird song, the nature, his activity, wildlife. You know, it goes on. And there's nest boxes here. Chris Waddle and your team, you put nest boxes, bat boxes, and it's great. It's great, and it's going back to the way it used to be. You know, people liked it. It is here, as I say, for people, basically.
Yeah, it's been massive, John. And as a member of staff of the City Council, I think it's only fair to say we really appreciate the not just what you've been doing with the timber work, but the way you've helped. It's just pull the community together around here. And as a new parent, I'm seeing it more and more. The interaction with children down in the woods is just, it's fabulous. It's people's smiles on their faces everywhere, isn't it?
You can hang on to children's innocence, and not only that, parents have got to accompany children, and they share the magic as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And the laughter. So they go away happy.
Yeah.
Happier than when they came.
Absolutely.
And I think if you can go and put a smile on somebody's face, that's it.
Yeah.
You've made it.
Definitely.
And it's all free.
That's the best part of it.
I don't charge a penny.
No. Cheers, John.
Well, it's accessible for me.
That's brilliant.
I've been coming down here since before my accident, actually. I was walking a dog before I broke my neck. And then for the last 30 years, not the same dog, it didn't last that long. But I was walking my first dogs who were disabled down here 25 years ago. But I could never come down here on the field. I could never approach the river. Whereas now, being able to come down here and all the way along the bottom, we've done it today right next to the river, and water's just so healing. I'm a meditator and I teach meditation, and just to be able to sit there next to the water, just
fabulous.
And I've just learned more about flowers in the last 10 minutes, especially in Cornwall, than I have done. You say he's an amateur. He's taught me more about flowers and what's growing around here in the last 5 minutes, John, has than I ever knew.
There you go.
It's close to home. It's accessible. It's well run, well looked after, but it's just a little bastion of like Steve said, of just for mindfulness and just for immersion into nature, and just for the benefits that brings, both sort of mentally, physically, spiritually. It's just beautiful. We can sit here and not realise that we're practically in the centre of Truro, and apart from the train going past and the odd motorbike rolling around a distance away, all you can hear is the sound of nature, the birds, watch the insects, the butterflies, the number of pollinators in different forms is just phenomenal, and the number of flowers, so many beautiful native sort of British flowers everywhere, and it's brilliant. And it's very healing. You know, if you had a hard day, come down here, you just let it all just slide off you like a Teflon suit. You know, it's just really good to. And like Steve was saying, in the first lockdown last year, you know, it was quite a hard period for a lot of people, and I found it very useful to come down and do some mindfulness in the mornings, watching the sunrise, especially when the weather was really good at the beginning part. It was nice to come down, you know, in the early hours, keeping an eye out for the elusive kingfisher, and you know, doing a bit of mindfulness and just waking up, listening to nature and the it was great for the stress and the worry and the anxiety.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thanks a lot, guys.
How can we improve on this? Just the silence. If we just stop talking for a minute and just... We're right next to the city of Cornwall. Just, you know, we don't even have to drive here. It's literally right next to us. It's on our doorstep. This is our garden, you know. This is nature's garden. We've got the cathedral and we've got the nature's cathedral right here. You can't improve on this.
It's got to be protected and maintained.
Absolutely.
The most important part for me on my mayor year is to make sure we don't leave any groups out. And Chris, the team, the parks, we've already cemented the one end. Just to be able to come down here and just to be actually in the midst, right next to the river, like I said earlier. It's just, we're not leaving the groups out. And meeting the Learn Your Way group that's helping out, that was just, so far that's been the highlight of my mayorship.
Oh wow, that's brilliant.
Just amazing group.
They are.
And they are
They're
the
a
ones
great group.
helping to do it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's great to know, Steve. Yeah, they'll be made up with that. We call this soil brown forest earth.
Yeah.
So, Fraser, you know quite a lot about the soil, don't you?
Yeah, it's basically all the bugs and stuff in it, especially worms. They're like natural drillers there. They help drill through the
They
soil
do, yeah.
and basically turn it into compost. So
They
basically
do.
you're walking on worm poop, really.
And where does all this initially come from on the ground?
Leaves
from the
twigs,
trees,
branches, all sorts, right?
And then they fall on the floor and they rot down, don't they?
Yeah.
And then the
That's
worms
right,
move
yeah.
in.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
they basically have their lunch, right?
That's it, yeah. There's other things in the ground as well called fungus. We're not
Yeah.
talk too much about that. They actually work alongside the trees and the plants,
Yeah.
and they help each other out. But
Mushrooms.
yeah, that's true. Mushrooms, yeah.
fungus, toadstools, right?
Yeah. So what else grows from? So once we've got this sort of fallen debris, and then the worms move in, they turn into soil.
Flowers.
Flowers grow. What like to fly on flowers?
Bees, butterflies, all sorts. They like
Yeah.
to collect all the nectar and the pollen and stuff, don't
That's
they?
it. And what flies around in the sky that likes to eat the bugs?
Birds,
Yeah.
all sorts of birds, right? All part of the food chain, really, isn't
It is. And what on the plants do the birds like to eat sometimes?
Bugs.
Yeah, and there's like little. Sometimes, depending on the time of year, you get different types of things on trees, like little berries, don't you?
Yeah.
And the birds like to eat those as
Yeah.
well.
Problem is, some berries can be quite poisonous to
And to humans.
and fungus too, and plants.
So we have to be careful,
Some
don't
of them can actually kill you if you're not careful.
we? You have to be really careful. You have to know what you're doing, don't you, Fraser? So when you look at this bit of brown dirt on the floor, we just call it mud, don't we, or dirt?
Yeah.
It's actually really complex, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's lots of things happened.
Yeah, like all different complex.
Do you think we'd be able to have all these huge plants in the sky, these big trees, if it was?
No.
Probably not, would we?
Because we didn't have any trees, we wouldn't have any oxygen, would we? But problem is, there's too many people out there. They're just destroying these trees for money, aren't they?
It's a shame, isn't it?
Yeah, guaranteed we need the furniture and stuff, but we don't want to cut down the whole jungle, do we? I mean, look what's happening to the Amazon. Pretty much half that jungle burnt down.
It's such a shame, isn't it?
Awful.
So we have to help protect
We need
woodlands.
to do something about it.
Yeah, it's true, Fraser.
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome to lovely Fremantle Street. Here we are, a really busy central Truro street, which, yeah, lots of traffic, lots of dust. But check this out. Here we are. This is the community border. This is Fremantle Street community border. This is something we've been working on for since 2017 rather. Started off as a bed full of Spanish gorse, which had been planted when Marks and Spencer's was built. So this bed is made up with probably farm soil, claggy, heavy clay, very little organic matter in it. The Spanish gorse was growing right across the pavement, causing a lot of problems. People were complaining. It wasn't really doing very much. It flowers once a year, and then it really was just attracting litter and all sorts of. It wasn't nice anyway. So, in conjunction with Parks Department and a group of volunteers, we ripped out the Spanish gorse. Now, the next step was planting 3 trees along here, which was the starting point for this section of the bed. We then applied a nice thick bed of mulch, which was, it's from Victoria Gardens actually, and we came together as a group of 20 volunteers here and planted this out with a variety of, native, non-native, anything really that we could get our hands on. And so now we're at a stage where some of the original plants have gone, we haven't wanted them anymore. Other plants are now finding their roots, and we're reintroducing new plants every year here. But coming back to the soil, which of course is what drives any planting forward really, we're slowly building up that organic content in the soil. And as I mentioned earlier, the fact that it was made up soil meant it had no water holding capacity or very little. It was either soaking wet slaggy clay or rock hard clods of soil in the summer. So by slowly getting more plants in and by getting more photosynthesis going on within the leaves and more carbon going into the soil through that photosynthesis, and by applying compost, bring garden compost down here. We've had more compost from the Parks Department. One of the community members here is a jobbing gardener with big bags of rotting leaf mould, which he's going to be bringing down probably in the autumn, which is going to help again. And one of the other things we're doing here now, I'll just show you what we've been doing down on the ground. Been cutting things down unfortunately, but this is catnip, which is not carried away. But I haven't been wanting to take all the clippings home with me because it's created a lot of detritus, and my little composting at home couldn't cope with it. So what we've simply been doing is every time we do some cutting down here, sorry, I'm going to do it quick. I just reduce it in size and leave it on top of the soil, and you can see yourself what's happening is we're creating a sort of layer of mulch, and often if you'll do that, you'll see all the wood lice. And if it's wet enough, the worms are coming right to their surface, taking it down in their burrows. And then I believe I'm right in saying that all that worm cast is actually natural water holding material, if you like. So the hope is that as the years go by and we can actually raise this level of soil, we're going to improve the flowering. So in terms of the title of the conference, that then without soil health here, without the ability to grow healthy plants, we wouldn't have this lovely bed, and the effect it's having on the people who live here and the people who go past, even people who come into town shopping, they're making a point of walking past this bed now. There's a lady who lives up the road here. She says if she's feeling a bit down, she can walk along this bed. Cheers her up because she's experiencing all these flowers, and we're trying to plant things that attract lots of pollinators. I've seen painted ladies down here right in the middle of Truro. bumblebees, of course, no end, and hopefully lots of other insects as well. But of course, what we can't see, which you've probably been hearing about a lot prior to me talking about this bedding for Mantle Street, is what's going on below ground. And because it's out of sight, often it's out of mind. But without that health, without those microbes, without the mycorrhizal associations that are happening down below ground, then none of what you see above ground will happen. You can't separate soil health from plant health. You've been hearing about this all day, I suspect. So you feed the soil, you feed the plants, all those benefits, and we were talking about possible, and I think, well, in my book, positive mental health attributes that you have. And right here, right in the middle of Truro, we have a place where you can come and cheer yourself up and just walk along it. If you've had a busy day in town and you're fed up with crowds, difficult to get away from the traffic a bit here, as you could probably hear, but you can just sort of like slightly go otherworldly here and slightly transform yourself and hopefully have a good day here. Anyway, thanks for listening.
Thanks.
I'm interested in the aspect of people with just feeling a bit unfit, a bit lonely, a bit depressed, maybe out of work, who might want to get involved, who could just come along and refer themselves. And I think there's been so much work done lately on the health benefit. Well, anecdotally, there's a load of work on the health benefits of being out in nature, but I mean that's also being documented now academically, isn't it? Particularly with the work of forest bathing and stuff. And I'm just interested in your take on that. I mean, the group that could just dip in and out, I guess. Or
I think that's something that we would love to be able to encourage. The beauty of having groups come along on a regular basis now is it's opening up, it's almost advertising itself to people who use social media or who talk within the community.
because it's just magic, and you do a bit of unofficial teaching, don't you? Pick out some of the, I mean, there's some amazing species around that until I started going to Dorber's Moor that I didn't even know about.
Yeah, oh yeah, I mean the wildflower spread and the insects we have out here is incredible.
But sorry, this isn't Dorber's Moor, this is the Northern Meadows. Northern Meadows?
Northern Meadows, a Coosbean, yeah, that's what we call it.
Yeah.
Woodlands have a real nice way of interacting and interlinking a lot of different community groups.
It's nice to think about fairies in them as well, isn't it?
Well, exactly. It's magic for kids.
And the other thing we're trying to do as well is growing things, and that's the Furnace Island project, which the vegetables are still there and they're very glad that they've had the rain. But finding little places where people can grow food. I've noticed also that there's quite a few veg planted in some of the flower beds. It would be quite nice to have that in some way that people would feel they could come and help themselves, and also to come and plant. So we could have, like Incredible Leather in Truro or something. But Furnace Island, if anybody's interested in doing that, that's open to anybody.
Do you know why we make these dead hedges, Luke? Remember?
Make a path.
It does. It helps segregate the path, so when the public are walking up here, they can make a path. And do you know what happens to the branches, Lou, over time?
It's rotten.
They go rotten. That's it. So when they rot down, all the insects get in there, don't they?
Yeah.
So beetles, things like that. And then also, over time, when all the leaves and everything rot down, where do they go? Do you think? In the ground. That's it. So they add nutrients to the soil. So then, alongside this path, because it's going to be a bit of a walkway for the public to use, we've planted some donated trees. Now this tree is an oak tree, so this type of species will bring a lot of wildlife in the future. And we've added a little bit of wood chip. Do you know why we put this rotten wood chip around the top of the tree?
To keep the weeds safe.
They do, so it helps protect the tree at the bottom. And over time, what do you think it'll do as well?
Make it go. Compost.
There you go, add to the soil, that's it, Lou.
Yeah.
And this large section of meadow here, which is now owned by the City Council, and we get to manage it. Years ago it used to be agricultural land, so it would have been overgrazed probably by sheep and cattle, and probably due to all the trampling on the ground, the soil's probably become quite thin, and that's allowed a lot of wildflowers to grow. But because it hasn't been grazed for such a long time, you can see the amount of different grasses have grown through, and we've now got a real biodiverse ecosystem basically, and that's allowed so many different insects to get in there. And one of our sort of favourite insects there, what we've been looking for this morning, Luke, remember what it was? Type of spider? It was yellow and black.
What spider?
Wasp spider. Andrea, you've been coming along now. Is it about 5 weeks, 6 weeks we've had you guys?
Yeah, it is about every Tuesday afternoon now, Chris. 6 weeks, and 6 weeks of absolute fun, pleasure for everybody involved, so really enjoying it.
And what sort of benefits do you think people are getting from coming on this service?
Well, I mean, speaking for myself as well, it's been really hard coming out of COVID. You know, we've been locked up for so many weeks. Certainly just embracing your natural surroundings, getting out into the countryside is so great for your own well-being, but particularly your mental health. I know my confidence has certainly improved because you're engaging with more people, but just speaking to others who are part of this programme, it's been really key to building their social skills and their confidence, you know, when we've all been locked up. So yeah, it's brilliant.
The Truro community wants to come along and volunteer in any of the different sort of groups we host, or want to do it off their own back, just email me, chris@truro.gov.uk. But I think, you know, hopefully the sound quality wasn't too hard to listen to, but since COVID-19 restrictions have changed only a few months back, the benefits on mental health has been huge. Just being in amongst green spaces, just from my own eyes, what I've seen, and I'm sure it probably rings throughout the whole country, really, probably throughout the world. So yeah, it's been great working with people from my own personal point of view. I'm just seeing a couple of comments that come up. It's great. Thanks a lot.
I actually think if we changed I think people getting into that environment, we can, if their mindsets change, because I think as a nation we have, or maybe as a planet, we have a mindset that is very much about fighting nature. If that mindset changes, then we will actually look after it for its own sake.
I completely agree, and I think Coosbean Woodland's a huge example of that. There's nearly 40 acres under the City Council's management, and before the City Council took it over, it was enjoyed by a lot of locals. One of them, John Rowe, on the video, but it was also misused by a lot of drug users. People making camps down there, and it was full of domestic rubbish. There was not a lot of light down there. There was not a lot of more dominant species definitely took over. So with a bit of management and a bit of community input, now you walk through the woodland and it's full of child's laughters, it's full of families, even the teenage groups that go down and maybe use it for recreational purposes that isn't ideal in a social setting. After a 5-minute conversation with those, they happily move on because they're enjoying it. Exactly, they go to enjoy it as well. It's just in a slightly different way. But I think the worst problems we've had is just people enjoying it too much and forgetting to take the litter home. But because we've got such a strong community, and that litter's usually picked up by the morning, and I've usually had a phone call about something that's negative, and it's always resolved. I think it's a little gem that the whole of the green space in Truro is a massive part of people's mental health, without a doubt.
Chris, is
thank you.
All together, you know, right from the start, from the sort of academic, what's in the soils, and down through all the talks to finish with yours, is that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
So
I think when I was watching the guest speakers earlier on, it was incredibly important to know, but really interesting to listen to, especially with my job. But I was kind of thinking, the way these talks are going, I'd like the thought that basically summed it up. I feel that seeing it's the end of the product line, the community users having that interlink, that balance of understanding the ecology of woods, but also appreciating it. It starts from soil and it ends with nature just being in harmony, really. So yeah, I'm glad you've sort of summed that up, because it felt like that.
I think that's kind of the message, that we find it quite hard to get through to the people that are decision making, because you sort of you ask questions about one sort of particular issue, but I think what a lot of people want is that kind of end result, and it's putting all the pieces together, and hopefully we'll get a few ideas that we can send through to, you know, Cornwall Council or other people that are making those decisions and pulling it together. And while I'm sitting here on the screen, I just want to say again, Martin Olvey's apologies, who unfortunately can't be with us. And as Cabinet Member for the Environment and Climate, it would have been really nice to have been able to directly ask him questions. And but he has agreed to take part in a future session, if you know, of taking these things forward. So I'm looking forward to a Q&A, which Lindsay's going to chair.